Hi everyone, my name is Aishwarya Sharma, and today's discussion topic is: are we actually agile or really ad hoc? So, before we move forward, agile is a real household name when it comes to product management. We've been following these methodologies as part of our best software development practices, and this is something we go by. This is something major tech companies use to build some of the cool products into reality. But what is really important for us as product managers is to actually take a pause and think through if we are really agile or we are becoming ad hoc. Quick introduction about myself. I'm Aishwarya Sharma, currently working as a senior product manager at Amazon. I have worked in many different industries, including fintech, consumer electronics, smart home technologies, etc. I do have a podcast that I co-host. It's called the Daisy Tea Talks. That link there at Daisy Tea Talks is my channel. Please go follow if you like to. You can also find me on LinkedIn. So, what is agile methodology? If we have to say what is agile methodology in three sentences, I would say that it is a way for us to do iterative software development, something where requirements and solutions are constantly evolving. There are small Scrum teams that collaborate together to deliver on these products. So it's basically we've come a long way from our waterfall techniques. Agile today is helps us make smaller cycles of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or however your sprint length is. It helps us plan for a smaller chunk of time and set up features that evolve as our requirements as well as solutions grow. Many software companies actually follow the 2 week sprint cycle that is followed by a significant UAT testing, uh, and so on and so forth. But why is it that after doing so much of planning and so much of due diligence of what our requirement should look like, we basically end up in any and every disruption? What does it mean to have a disruption? A disruption means that you're in a sprint, you're building a product, but suddenly you've been asked to do something else. Basically, you had this whole you had a full agile planning, you did all the sprint ceremonies, you did your sprint planning, you did your sprint kickoff, and like 2 days into your sprint, you suddenly have to do something else. And that continues to happen. Why is it that if in product we definitely see these disruptions coming more often than not? We have to give it to our consumer. I mean, the way things are changing in today's world, consumer needs are volatile. Our consumer needs have become digital in a way that they are expanding. It takes even a single day to sometimes change some of our major requirements. Consumers behave differently, consumers think differently what they were thinking a month before. So we have to always accommodate for what our consumers and how they are changing their requirements. Similarly, our business needs are changing. So a company can find its profit in building one feature. A company can suddenly decide to go the other route in building another feature. We as product managers are told that we are CEOs of the product, but we really have to value some of the business decisions. Let me give you an example. We do all kinds of data researches to build this one cool app. The app has a very nice UI, but for some reason, people are used to a one-click option. People are nowadays used to the e-commerce shopping, and it turns out that the consumers really want a one-click solution to some of the workflows. We can go change those workflows from our front end or even at our back end, but that doesn't really change anything on how company gets their revenue. On another day, if it's a fintech company, your company may suddenly want to decide to change the credit policy. So there is a thin line of difference between how we react to a consumer needs and how we react to our business priorities. This is where disruptions keep coming. The next set of disruptions come from our cross team dependencies. Now, there are so many different teams that do so many different things when we are building a product. What it comes down to is maintaining that level of feature parity, if nothing to start with. So imagine imagine there's a product that the team is building. We go through a full cycle of estimation and planning, and we decide that it's going to take 3 weeks or maybe two sprints and one more additional sprint of buffer. We do all the due diligence and identify how that is going to look like. But in reality, when the developer starts developing, they identify that no, this could have this would take longer than what we thought about, because hey, the other team actually updated the API and we now need to onboard ourselves to the new one. So with the amount of versions that we are adding in our code base on a day-to-day basis, and especially when you have cross teams that work on similar products, it's something we have to always keep up with. We always have to maintain that level of feature parity while building our own products. This is where some of our disruptions arise from. It is also important to understand that cross teams do not work on the same plans and sprint cycles as we do. So every planning must account for not just your disruptions, but the disruptions that other team is going to have. So yes, in product world, disruptions are inevitable. And then last but not the least, integration and UAT feedback. There's a saying, how much feedback is too much feedback? So, Agile really is about you finish a sprint, you go through the testing, you take the feedback, and you evolve on it. What it really comes down to is when we are the way we are functioning in today's world. We finish a milestone, we start testing it, we take the feedback, and we keep evolving on it. Sometimes we do not even account for enough timing when it comes to the testing and bug fixes. Sometimes we overdo it where we look at each and every feedback. Sometimes we are too caught up in the sprint ceremonies and keep doing the retrospective rounds. What we really need to understand is what is it that our team needs? Are we really addressing the needs of our team as well as the product? Because following a pattern is easy, but customizing it for our particular needs is very important, and that's where all of the feedback loops and iterations and evolving the product comes into. A sprint should be able to account for all these different dimensions of a product thinking. They are the key. They are the key to a product evolution, as well as ensuring that we are able to deliver on what was our original vision. And then, last but not the least, much focus on feature delivery. Today, in this fast and competitive world, we are so focused on building the right features, and we are just so focused on building so many features that, oh, this feature is going to give us this value. This feature is going to help our customers get that additional benefit. Our company might just get additional revenue if we did that. We are just so focused in building what right features are that we tend to kind of forget our platform. So, I used to work with this dev. He once fondly told me that, Aisha, we can't keep working on these features unless and until our platform is strong. We need to have a stronger foundation. A great product can only be built on a stronger foundation, and we have to keep that in mind. And that's why when engineers say that the code needs refactoring, we gotta listen to that. I actually put this quote in the slide because I really like this. It's by Reid Hoffman. He's from LinkedIn. Most of us already know have are very well versed with this quote and many other quotes that he has in building the right product. It says, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched it too late. So, see, timing and priority and building the right thing sort of go hand in hand. And it's up to the product manager to keep ensuring that they are building the right product without hindering the success of that product. How is it that despite so much disruption, despite so much chaos, we as product managers can maintain some balance in dealing with these disruptions? I think the first and the foremost thing is to basically embrace the reality that this is a real deal. I mean, this is a it is inevitable. There are going to be disruptions, there are going to be ad hoc requests. We have to always account for those buffers in our sprints. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. What should happen is we should always account for those because, hey, if there is no disruption, we might just end up adding some new features after all. It's fine. But you gotta admit that the ad hoc nature of software development or building any product is totally fine. Formally acknowledging it, keeping those sprint buffers available, gives us that space and liberty to play around with how our sprint plans look like. So this is a very important thing for us as product managers, that we maintain, we acknowledge it, and we keep those buffers in our sprints. A usual standard practice says you can do a 70% feature development and 30% of any buffer that you want to say, any buffer that you want to like. Non-critical bug fixes, ad hoc P0 requests. Sometimes you might just have a service incident and you have to meet the SLAs. It all depends on your product, it all depends on your team. But a 70/30 ratio is one of the good ones. And then this is a very important point. And something I personally, from in my experience, I once I started doing this, it helped me a lot. Basically, keep reminding yourself of the product vision. Keep enforcing yourself, keep ensuring that your team is aware of what the product vision is, because eventually that's what our goal is. We are building a great product towards a great vision. There will be more requirements, there will be more disruptions, there will be these ad hoc requirements that we have to address to. But at some level, as product managers, it is our duty to make sure that there is a greater good that these requirements are fitting into. We have to constantly analyze and understand if these requirements at some point are feeding into our greater vision of product management. So, yes, filter your requirements based on what your product vision looks like. Another very important point is early collaboration with the engineering team. So, this is a very interesting one. In my experience, I have been in both kind of companies where engineering is involved early on or engineering is not involved at all. The the best case scenario is to have all the key stakeholders on the same page as we begin building a product. That's it. The goal is to have everybody on the same page. And what can help doing that, at least from our execution standpoint, is having our engineering team involved in early discussions. I mean, imagine we build a product when we go to our engineers and they say, you know what, it's not feasible. That won't be good. So it's critical that we involve some of the people who are going to have tech decisions at their hand early on in the product development and planning cycle. And it's nice when these people are involved early on because they always bring that additional perspective on what the current capabilities of our infrastructure usually is. So as product managers, it's very important that we keep that balance and we keep that connection between all stakeholders. I do not want to say it's business and tech and this and that. No, it's everybody involved should be on the same page as we start building our product. This is another interesting one. In Agile, even if we follow some of these sprint practices and ceremonies, we are still doing a little bit of a waterfall in our head. Some people in my team, in my previous team, have told me, "Oh, is it probably because Agile is waterfall in disguise?" Trust me, that's a real quote. Uh, it is not, but our thinkings as human always stays that way, that we want the requirements, we want to finish building, and then we start doing something else. However, feature development is not equal to feature delivery. I mean, we can build as much as we want, but that thing has to go through a full UAT. Like it has to go through its testing. It has to go through significant amount of acceptability tests, because after all, our consumers should get the final product, right? What happens is once the feature development is done, usually the dev teams rotate to start building on something else. Now, two things happen in this case. There's a full-fledged context switching that this original dev team has to go through, and secondly, we just go with the assumption that, oh yeah, we just finished development and everything's going to be fine. No. If everything goes fine, great, we are in the best possible scenario, but usually that is not the case. What we need to ensure is keeping that bandwidth, keeping that buffer alive, keeping that sprint element while we are planning our bug fixes and UAT testing. uh, we don't need to wait for that milestone that, okay, unless once the feature development is done, that's when we start doing all the testing. No, we can actually start testing them early on once we have any tangible f- once we have some early development and once we have some early feature completion. It's absolutely fine to start testing them early on. It is also absolutely fine to keep the dev team available for any and every bugs or testing related issues that they might have to resolve. So, what it comes down is to make sure that the dev team that is building it should be able to deliver it. It is faster if we do not context switch and and let them take it to the finish line, as opposed to doing all this chaos of, oh, do this feature completion, move to this other product, come back again because there's a bug. So this isn't my experience, that I have always noticed that unless and until things are finished, it's better to not do too much of new product development right away. But again, it also depends on how your teams and how your team and how your product and how your prioritizations are going. But something to definitely watch out for. Yeah, like I said, we gotta keep some time for some software bug fixes and refactoring, and also always giving opportunity for refactoring, because that's one thing we never talk about. We say that there's disruption where there's this ad hoc request. If we really invest some time in ensuring our product is bulletproof, like some of them say, or invest some time in scaling our platform and infrastructure, we actually might avoid some of these disruptions and ad hoc bug fixes or requests that come a long way. We might just be we might just be avoiding some of these requests just by building a stronger platform. So I think it's very important that we acknowledge all these other things except for just building feature. Of course, that is very important. That's our job as product managers. But at the same time, we have to look at other things that might not just give you the revenue right away, might not see an impact right away. There's one more thing that product managers tend to do often. I am guilty of doing that too. Early on in my career, I remember I started with one framework that didn't work out, and then I was like, okay, maybe I should just switch to this Kanban style. Maybe that works better. No, you have to take a pause and understand what is best for your team and your product. It is so data is the best friend in for a project manager, right? Every framework takes time to give you results and to also get adapted to. So if your team is new on one framework and you're not getting the most desired results, changing the framework would actually not help. If you think that you have a lot of ad hoc requests and you want to just move to a Kanban board style, of course, you can try it, but what really is missing is the fact that you're not acknowledging that 50% of your team's time is devoted to doing all the ad hoc requests, and you probably had to just better build your Scrum framework. So, any and every framework is great. What you have to ensure is whichever you pick, you give it time, you take the data, you understand if that is making sense. If not, then make the call of switching it over or introducing some new elements into it. Unless and until you've tried something for 6 to 8 months, you really cannot see the results and impact of any framework. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So, last but not the least, I wanted to keep this presentation very first focused on how much disruptions we get as product managers, how is it's our job and how we maintain the product vision. What it really comes down is to finding that certainty in uncertainty. So it is never going to be the case where you know everything upfront when you're building it. Come on, we moved out of that whole waterfall methodology anyway. Uh, what can happen is you'll know some of it, in best cases, most of it, and it's up to us how we make sure that uncertain information that we have, that little information or more information, or how much ever information we have, how we turn that into a most certain, beautiful, gorgeous product. Because if we don't do it in time, somebody else is going to come in and do it, and then that's going to be a bad spot. So I think finding that certainty in the uncertainty is the key here. As a takeaway for this talk, I would like for our product managers to always watch out for what disruptions are occurring in their teams, in their product lifecycle. Acknowledge them and then ensure that once you've acknowledged it, do something about it. Give bandwidth in your sprints. It's okay. It's going to take another maybe one or two rounds of leadership convincing. That's fine. You have the data. You know what's happening in your team. Maybe that acknowledgement and building those buffers actually helps grow your product better. So acknowledging that, understanding what the team really needs, and at the same time building those agile frameworks the best suited for your team and product is very important. We cannot blindly follow anything and everything that everybody does in industry. I mean, we have a lot of content that we read on internet, on different channels. Everybody does things that make sense to them, and that's what, as product managers, we have to identify. So building the right buffers, ensuring that we are constantly looking at our vision, constantly understanding and filtering our requirements, making sure that the most important ones make it to the list, while keeping our business needs in place, giving our tech the time to actually grow, like to build stronger, and using data to make some of those big changes. Those are some of the key takeaways that I want everybody to take. Those are some of the key takeaways I want to give away after today's talk. But that's it for me from my first talk. Really wanted to touch base on how, if we say we are true agile, but true agile is really not a thing. We are becoming more and more ad hoc, and in some cases, I think in most cases, it's a product's role to keep ensuring that teams are building the right thing that makes sense for the company, for themselves, and for the product. Thank you.